All right, everybody, so we're a little bit overdue for a story time. And this story time will be about how I had to go to court for a traffic ticket. And it was CDL related. I may have mentioned it, or I'll be bringing it up in one of my videos, right? This is that same incident that I'm referring to. So here's the situation. Situation is, back in December, was in Chicago area, got loaded up, and was rolling back in through Michigan City and New Buffalo. Well, Michigan City scale was closed, and the New Buffalo one was open. No big deal. Looked at the bills. Was like 38,000 pounds. You know, I knew where the tandems and where the pressure gauge needed to be for 38,000 pounds. I wasn't really too concerned about it in the slightest. I mean, it was no big deal. Got up on the scale, and they told me to go right and reweigh. Well, reweighing, I mean, could be for a couple of things. Maybe you were following too close to the truck behind you, or you went over the scale plates too fast. Well, they weighed each individual axle. They told me to go around to the back. And I went, ooh, that's not good. It meant that I had an overweight axle somewhere. But how much was unbeknownst to me. And let me preface this by saying, even when you think you know, double check, right? This is a lesson learned. I got out of this fairly unscathed. So I go inside, and the trooper tells me that, I can't remember if it was my drive axle or my trailer axle. One of those was overweight. And it was overweight by about 3,000 pounds. And I immediately looked at my bills and I went, so then there's no way that this thing is, has 38,000 pounds in it. Prime example of why you don't always trust the bills. What ended up happening after after he showed me, the scale out, the total weight was like 78,000 or 79,000 pounds. That's like 40 to 41,000 pounds behind me. So what ended up happening, to my conclusion, is that the customer that we had picked up from had overloaded me. And not by by overloading, it was enough to where I think they snuck extra product onto the truck, which means that they can move more freight for less money. They have to pay less money. It's a pretty scammy way of doing it. I think it's theft, right? We could be making more money, but they'd rather just pile on the extra few pieces, whatever. And it wasn't like they stacked it onto the back. I think what they did was they stacked it around the additional 4,000 pounds or whatever, throughout the skids that were already on the trailer. Because then you have the same pallet count, only difference would be the piece count. So he hits me with one violation for that, and then asked me to see my license, which is normally no big deal. Sure, whatever, Don't fight it. be nice, be courteous. Even for this example right here. He scanned my license, asked me if I had a valid DOT physical. Sure do. Pulled up a copy of it on my phone, and what I was taught in my CDL school was that if your CDL or if your DOT physical ever comes into question, then make sure that you have either a digital copy or a physical copy, because that'll be your get out of jail free card. And luckily, eventually it was, but he looked at me and had said, well, you no longer have a CDL, so you're shut down. And I asked him, I said, if I go outside and fix this, self-report it, whatever. Because that was the whole thing, was that, he asked me if I had reported it to the state, and I said, no, I've never had to do that. Because every company I've worked for has done that for me. And most companies will do that. It doesn't cost you anything to register it yourself or to report it yourself. It's not a big deal if you have to. It takes you 10-15 minutes. So I went out to he goes, well, you come back and we can check, whatever. I left that building incredibly ticked off, I think rightly so, because I knew that I was legal. Fine, it's a clerical issue, right? Like, if I can fix it in 10-15 minutes, there's no need to write it up. Like, let me go out there, I'll go put it in, you can run my license again and check it, see if it pops up in the system. Because fun fact, it's instantaneous. You don't need to wait 3 business days in order for it to show up. So I went out there, fixed it, went back up the building, knocked on the door. And we went inside and we checked it. And sure enough, it was legal, and he let me go. However, this is the kicker, is that when he first ran that and it didn't come back, part of the violation was operating a commercial vehicle without the proper endorsement. Which is the same as, if you were to take a motorcycle out without a motorcycle endorsement. Same thing. Well, that's a misdemeanor. That's a big problem, because if you want to get hired anywhere else or move up in the trucking industry, whatever, that's going to be a hindrance. Like, that will keep you locked right where you are, because good luck explaining that one away. Right, because if you say, oh, it was a clerical issue, right, that sounds like a cop-out. Sounds like an excuse, sounds like a lie. So, took the ticket, went home, looked up the fine. The overweight ticket was, I think, $400 some odd. No points on the license, though, which is good. It's a civil infraction, not a moving infraction. Don't get me wrong, it hurts, it'll hurt the wallet, but you'll come out unscathed. That's the important part. You'll come out all right. Just gotta pay it. Misdemeanor's a different story. That particular infraction is a misdemeanor, plus is, I believe, 3 points on your license. That night I ended up downloading the Michigan State Police violation chart. The whole infraction book is 200 pages, but I was able to find the point, or in the index, the violations and how many points go on your license. So I was looking at about 3 points, potentially an additional monetary fines. Fast forward a few months, I at this point I've already paid the ticket, but I needed to do what they call a walk-in arraignment for the misdemeanor, where I can fight it, take responsibility for it, whatever. Well, I was going to fight the misdemeanor. I was going to fight the that particular charge. I already had all the proof because in the original report it had written down that I showed him proof of a valid DOT physical. So therefore, in my opinion, null and void. If you ask me, it clearly shows that I was legal, but that he wrote an infraction for a clerical error. Well, for the people that were involved with this, the people that I came in contact with, they were great. The system was pretty awful. You can't pay your ticket online, so you have to email all your information over. Then you got to call. You might get a call back that day, or it might be a couple days later. As anybody that's ever gotten a traffic ticket knows, timing on paying them is important. It's crucial. Because if you don't pay it on time, you get late fees. They can potentially take additional legal action. You don't want that. So I got it paid with it. I got it paid in time. The only problem was getting to the arraignment. Once we got to the, I tried calling in ahead of time to figure out when the arraignments were happening, and you can't find out in advance when these walk-in arraignments are being held. You basically have to take the day off of work, call in, see if they're doing them. If they're not doing them, well, you've already taken the day off of work, right? Work's not expecting you in. And then it makes it also really hard on your employer, because then it's like, well, are you really taking the day off? Or are they just not going to have it? Like, I don't know until, X time, until I can get a hold of somebody. And that's, again, if you can get a hold of somebody. The biggest problem I had was getting a hold of somebody. Meanwhile, you're sitting there with a misdemeanor, you're right, you haven't been to court, and now you're thinking about, oh shoot, are they going to put out a warrant, right? Probably one of the most stressful points of my driving career. Even more stressful than my first accident with a semi. That wasn't my fault. So, come this month, April 10th, the week before, or the week that we got back from the Mid-America Truck Show, they had sent in a letter saying that on April 10th is your scheduled court date. Great. April 10th, went in there. And I think everything got sorted out. There was no judge there for that trial. What I got was something even better, was I got the prosecutor. So they called my name up on the docket. She pulled me aside into another room and said, just so you know, this is pre-trial. How do you want to go about this? I'm like, I have no idea. I came in here to try to explain my case. Try to at least, explain this particular portion of it. Within 2 minutes, that charge was dismissed. She looked at me, she said, wait, you had a DOT physical and you have a valid CDLs. Yes, I do. And she goes, then I'm dismissing this. And she goes, as for the overweight, what do you want to do? I said, I'll take full responsibility for it. Yep, was definitely overweight. We walk back in the courtroom. She turns around, looks at me, and she goes, did you pay the $400 some odd for the fine? Yeah, sure did. Paid that back in like January. She goes, then you are good to go. Moral of the story is, even when you're going to get something rather heavy, call it 35,000 pounds to your max capacity, hit a scale. Even, I don't want to say don't go off your knowledge, because your knowledge is very valuable. Your knowledge is what gets you through your job. However, you can't trust the people that are loading the truck when you cannot be in there to watch it. You can't be there to, you're not counting individual pieces, but if they decide to sneak on 2 extra pallets, you can tell them, take that off. I'm only picking up 14. That's what we're scheduled to pick up. If you want to add more, then how about I call my dispatcher and we can work this out together. We'll figure out what's supposed to go on there. That's the way in which you can handle that. Otherwise, you are at the mercy of the people that are shipping the stuff out. And what happens when you trust people that you can't see, or people that, especially nowadays, are trying to, you know, make more money for less money, you get screwed over. And it's gonna happen. It always happens. It's unfortunately the way that it goes. So, in conclusion, I walked away with only having to pay a monetary fine. And what do I do from now on? I don't trust anybody. I don't trust anybody that's driving a forklift in the back of my truck. If I can't see them, I don't trust them. And that was a life lesson to learn and first time I've ever had anything like that happen in 7 years. And I'll tell you that it'll be the last time, because the next time I get pulled in for allegedly being overweight, I'm gonna have a scale ticket. That's the other thing too, is that if you have a scale ticket and the scale ticket shows that you're legal, you could show that to them and say, well, this is what the scale ticket says, and there are quite a few times where that scale ticket can be your get out of jail free card. But I'll wrap up the story time because we're getting here in about 16 minutes. So, hope you guys enjoyed the story. Do as I say, not as I do. Because I promise you don't want to end up in a lengthy court battle. That's not what anybody wants. So I appreciate you guys checking back in again. Like, comment, subscribe, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.